Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we are going to discuss about sensory receptors. Sensory receptors are organs that are specialized to perceive environmental stimuli. Otherwise, sensory neurons are dendrites of sensory neurons specialized for receiving specific kind of stimuli. We all know that sensory neurons can be found all over the body. They have the ability to sense the environmental stimuli and create impulses according to particular stimuli and to transfer the impulses to the central nervous system. And these sensory receptors has the structure of sensory neurons also. Sensory receptors serve as the transducers in the body. That means they have the capacity to convert energy from one form to another. For example, light. Light is one of the environmental stimuli. Light converted to electrical activity and finally to action potential. This action potential or this change initiates an impulse in an adjacent nerve. The impulse or the action potential thus generated is conveyed to the central nervous system, which in turn affects the sensory function. Here we can see some diagrams of sensory receptors. With the help of this, we can talk about the typical structure of sensory receptors. A sensory receptors have the components of the sensory neurons. They have cell body and an axon, a dendritic portion and an axonate portion with the synaptic knobs. The only difference is the structural difference in the dendritic endings. We can see different types of dendritic ends. At first receptor, we can see a free nerve endings, and second one, encapsulated nerve ending is present, and in fourth one, a hair-like peripheral process is present. It is also the modified portion of the dendrites of particular neuron. There are millions of sensory receptors all over the body. The function of these sensory receptors is to access various stimuli and to approach the central nervous system. These receptors have been classified differently based on the type of stimuli or nature of stimuli and the location of receptors. At first, we can discuss about the sensory receptors based on the classification of the location. The first one is exteroreceptors. Exteroreceptors monitor changes in the external environment, such as light, temperature, pressure, etc. That means these exterior receptors present or situated near the surface of the skin and are sensitive to stimuli occurring outside or sensitive to stimuli outside the sensitive to environmental stimuli and on the surface of the body. The example for environmental stimuli are tactile sensation such as touch, pain, temperature, as well as vision, hearing, smell, taste, etc. These are the examples of sensory receptors, exterosensory receptors. Here we can see the sensory receptors present in eyes, rod cell and cone cell. For hearing, sensory receptors for hearing, sensory receptors for smell, sensory receptors for taste and touch. These are all examples for the exterior receptors. Second one is the interoreceptors, otherwise known as visceroreceptors. They respond to the stimuli occurring in the body from visceral organs and blood vessels. That means they monitor internal body conditions such as pain, oxygen tension, etc. They work with interoreceptors work with autonomic nervous system because they are sensory neurons. The third one is proprioceptors. Proprioceptors respond to stimuli occurring in skeletal muscles, tendons, ligaments, and joints. They collect information concerning about body position, physical conditions of this location. This is the picture of proprioceptors, which can otherwise known as muscle sensory receptors, which are found in muscle joints, ligaments and tendons, etc. Another kind of classification of sensory receptor is the classification based on the type of stimuli. On the basis of type of stimuli they induce, we can classify sensory receptors into two: chemoreceptors and mechanoreceptors. Chemoreceptors detect chemical stimuli and the mechanoreceptors detect physical stimuli. Chemoreceptor. Chemoreceptor receives specific chemical stimuli by a sensory organ. They are extremely sensitive and may be stimulated by chemicals in trace amount. Chemoreceptors are the most common receptors in our body. Most of them have specialized dendritic endings, looks like hairs, which is known as cilia. Here is one example. This is olfactory receptor neuron, because olfactory receptor neurons comes under the section of chemoreceptors. Here we can see a cilia, that is the modified dendritic ending, and a dendritic knob, cell body, dendrite, axon, etc. All living things can detect and identify chemical substance in their environment with the help of the chemoreceptors. It obviously of great survival value to be able to identify suitable food and to avoid rotted or unfit foodstuffs. Chemoreceptors are also helpful to the organisms in a wide variety of ways, such as aiding in finding out mates, escaping from predators, recognizing prey, identifying hosts, etc. Chemoreceptors are again classified into two. They are olfactory receptors and gustatory receptors. Their function is also given here. The second one is mechanoreceptors. They detect various kinds of chemical stimuli such as force, that means pressure, touch, sound, etc. They have highly complex dendritic endings of neurons. Physiological mechanisms also varies in different types of mechanoreceptors. This is the structure of a typical mechanoreceptors. Here we can see axonites and synaptic knob, axon, myelinated axon, cell body, and the dendritic end. The dendritic end, here we can see a specialized structure in the dendritic end. Nerve ending is enveloped with the connective tissue. That's a very peculiar structure of mechanoreceptors. There are many different types of mechanoreceptors. Some of them are given below. They are Tangoreceptors, which sense touch pressure, phonoreceptors, which sense vibration, and statoreceptors, which is known as gravity receptors. Algioreceptors, which sense the pain in our body. Thermoreceptors sense the temperature in environment and also the temperature in our body. Magnetoreceptors sense the Earth's magnetic field. And the last one is photoreceptors, which are present in our eyes, which detect the light. Here we conclude this section. I hope all you understand the what is sensory receptors, and we can see in next video. In next videos, we will discuss about different types of chemoreceptors and different types of mechanoreceptors. Thank you.